Mike Hickory, Steve Schneider. Welcome.
Toss that card.
Steve, welcome. Holding up the visiting side today. How about guests of Rotarians on the right-hand side here? Any guests? How about the middle? Mark?
President David, it's my pleasure today to have Alexis Moody. She is an account executive with Reactivity, and she's new to the area, so please welcome her.
I have today as my guest Marion Hoff. She's a friend of mine from Germany, and she is chaperoning a group of students on a school program, exchange program they're visiting throughout the Carolinas. She also happens to be the mother of my German son who lived with us years ago, so please welcome Marion.
You give her some pointers on hosting groups, right? Okay, how about left side? Kristen?
Hi, I've got Taylor Young with me today. She is the better half of Frank Young. And she's actually my replacement at Catawba Science Center, so she's the new director of advancement. So I think she'll hopefully be a staple around this club. So thank you.
I got all kinds of things I can say about that. Taylor, welcome. Certainly glad you're here. I was wondering why Frank was so well behaved today. He's usually, out there. Okay, anybody else down the left side? Okay. Well, gosh, speaking of, Frank, would you like to?
All right, so what do y'all think I'm going to talk about? So, does everybody know the date? May 28th. Push it back 2 weeks. I know I can count on everybody in here. The next, not next week, the week after next, I will bring the sign-up sheets so that we can begin. Remember that the day I bring it in 2 weeks is when everybody fights over the first spots. So try to get here early that day. May 28th. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. There will be a meeting right after the meeting of the committee, the WIG number 4 committee. That's Susan Huffman's committee. You know who you are. You're going to meet here, just right in here, okay? And that actually will be part of our program next week. If you look in your spoke, it says that we aren't having a meeting next week. That is not true. You don't get a pass. We are meeting next week, and that's part of the program. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the Rotarian magazine. So we want everybody to bring your magazine. There could be huge prizes available if you bring your magazine. Could be, no guarantee. Okay, we had a great meeting at the Hickory Museum of Art. Most of you weren't there, but it was really nice, and it was great to see the Paul Whitener art contest that we're sponsored. And if you saw, I can't remember whether I saw it on Facebook or where, but it was really nice that it said sponsored by Hickory Rotary Club. So that's pretty neat, and that stays up there for a couple of months, Lisa? A couple of months. So your name is out there, and we were able to give an extra couple $100 over and above from donations that night, and we had good food provided by Highland Avenue. Thank you, Locks, and it was just a nice evening. So we're glad to do that. The next thing we'll be doing out of the regular club meeting will be on the 18th. That will be May 18th, and that's at the ballpark with all the Rotary clubs in the district, in the county. So there'll be a little bit more on that. There have been some flyers out. If you've seen those, we'll have some more information on that as you go. But that'll be $12 for anybody, friends, family, and everything. And that gets you food and ball game for $12 on the 18th of May. Next week will be the cutoff to buy your Rotarian Idol tickets. Oh, that's right, we've already had Idol. But we're still giving you a chance to buy tickets all the way up through next week. And at that point, then we're gonna see who is eligible for the grand prize in the Hat Trick Club. If you are a member of Century Club and sold an ad and sold all of your tickets. So that next week, get your money in to be eligible for that and to help out our club fundraiser. We're also looking for some benefactors. I promised Rotary International that we would have at least 4 benefactors, and we have about 3 of them that have people that have agreed to do that. To be a benefactor, all you have to do is include Rotary in your estate planning. And if you want to be a member of the Bequest Society, you include $10,000 in your estate planning. But a benefactor is just to include Rotary in your planning. So if you are willing to do that, or if you have done that this year, please let me know so that we can make sure that everything gets checked off on that. All right, the district conference is next weekend in Charlotte. You can still register if you haven't gone. It's at the Omni Hotel. There's going to be a really good lineup of speakers there and events going on. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday next week. They are raising money, not raising money, they're collecting items for the Ronald McDonald House. It's a service project that's going to be tied in with this district conference. You'll see over on the table here that basket. That's where we're going to be collecting this week and next week. So if you will, you can go online on Ronald McDonald House or the district website, and it'll give you a list of items. They're looking for household items as well as things like individual snacks and things like that for families that come to the Ronald McDonald House. So I want to be able to take an overflowing basket with me next week when we go. So think about that. We'll remind you in our notice, and if you will bring some next week will be the last chance because we'll be leaving on Friday for that. We gave money to Landmark Society for Heritage Days. That is tomorrow, and they can use some volunteers. If anybody's got a little bit of extra time tomorrow, let me know. I'll try to put you in touch with the right person. They need some help with parking and logistics, getting these. It's like every 4th grade student, is that right? Who knows that? 4th grade. Every 4th grade student in the county goes through this, so it's a lot of logistics getting them in and out of there in a day's time. So they could use some volunteers on that, and we like to volunteer at the places we give money. We've talked about Paul Harris matching. We're still doing that. That'll be available for a couple more weeks. You probably have gotten an email if you're close, if you're within a few $100s of another Paul, an initial or another Paul Harris Fellow, then you probably have gotten an email from either me or Lynn, and we urge you to do that and take advantage of the matching that the club is doing. And contact me, or Dan, or Lynn, Robert, any of us if you need to know how much you need to do in order to get your next Paul Harris Fellow. Okay, any other announcements I haven't got? Ann Williams has our Rotary moment.
They must be expecting a lot.
Well, we'll just pass it. I love that standing ovation. Thank you so much. Birthdays that we have had, maybe when we were meeting at the museum and didn't have a chance to announce it. April 3rd, Brian Setzler. Brian, happy birthday on the 3rd. On the 7th, Terry Creasman. On the 20th, it's Neil with 2 L's, Neil McGahee. And coming up also on the 21st will be our committee chairman that we call Chief, Clarence Pugh. So happy birthday to everybody. All right, I want to tell you a story about a retiree's last trip to Publix. Yesterday I was at Publix buying a large bag of Purina dog chow for my loyal pet. I was in the checkout line when a woman behind me asked if I had a dog. What did she think I had, an elephant? Well, because I'm retired, it's not me, I tell the story, and have little to do, on impulse, I told her no, I didn't have a dog. I was starting the Purina diet again. I added that I probably shouldn't because I ended up in the hospital last time, but that I'd lost 50 pounds before I awakened in intensive care with tubes coming out most of the orifices in my body. I told her that it was essentially a perfect diet and that the way it works is you load up your pant pockets with Purina nuggets and simply eat one or two every time you feel hungry. The food is nutritionally complete, certified, so it works well, and I was going to try it again. I have to mention here that practically everyone in line was now enthralled with my story. Horrified, she asked if I ended up in intensive care because the dog food poisoned me. I told her no, I had stopped to relieve myself on a fire hydrant and a car hit me. I thought the guy behind her was going to have a heart attack, he was laughing so hard. Publix won't let me shop there anymore. Better watch what you ask retired people. They have all the time in the world to think up crazy things to say.
Okay, so was it worth that applause or not? Jury's out. Okay. We're really delighted to have Angela Lawrence here today with us. Angela is the Executive Director of the Patrick Beaver Learning Resource Center. She herself is a North Carolina Teaching Fellow and has had a career teaching English at St. Stephen's High. There's a lot more about Angela and her work on the cover of the Spoke. And she is here today to talk to us about the Augustine Literacy Project, which is a project that helps find tutors and helps reading, which is the big thing in schools, believe it or not. There's a lot of pressure on schools to pass tests and assessments and that sort of thing, and there's a lot of need for reading tutors and programs. So the Augustine Literacy Project is one of those, and Angela's going to talk to us about that.
Thank you so much, and I'm going to come over here to work my PowerPoint because I don't think my remote will work from that distance. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. But first, before I get started, whenever you hear the word Patrick Beaver, what do you typically think about? The library, okay? And then add to the confusion that we also deal with literacy. And you've got a real identity problem there. But we are a completely separate organization from the Patrick Beaver Library. We're a nonprofit that's dedicated to children with learning differences. And obviously the Beaver family and Pat Anderson were very generous and helped us get started, but we are two complete separate organizations. But just for you, think about, have you ever been in a meeting where you didn't understand what people were talking about? The topic was a little over your head, okay? I think we probably all at one time or another had that experience. And so I want you to imagine for just a moment what you think a child who can't read in school feels like when they cannot keep up with what else is going on. Kind of simulate that. What do you think? Is that math problem true or false? 100 plus 100 equals 1,000. What do you think? No? I mean, we wish it worked that way in our bank account, right? But is there anybody here when I'll tell you that's actually true? Anybody here that knows how that problem could be true? There's a code involved. Any computer, electrical engineer folks here, programmers? I think somebody said it. It's binary code, right, okay? Actually what that's saying is, I believe, my son figured it out for me, 4 + 4 = 8, okay? That's actually what that says. But for a child who has learning differences, when we put words in front of them, that's like us having to read binary code, okay? It doesn't make sense to them. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about the problems with that. And first of all, there's just if you think about a child who is in school and they don't understand what's going on, they can't read, then what do you think is going to happen to them?
Not gonna do well.
They're not going to do well. They're going to get in trouble. They're going to find other things to do. And there is a clear connection between low literacy and crime. 85% of juvenile offenders have a reading problem. Okay, when you look at state prison inmates, 75% are high school dropouts or considered functionally illiterate. So there's some very clear correlations. We like to say that successful reading can make the difference between prison and productivity for a child. And it's, so sometimes when you hear those statistics, I mean, that really should start us thinking about the literacy problem that we have. And so when we think about it, how big of a problem do you think it is? How many kids do you think this affects?
Most of them.
What?
Most of them.
Most of them? 50%. Y'all, it is a high percentage. In fact, it's the only nationally standardized test says 65% of North Carolina's fourth graders score below proficient in reading, low literacy. And the scary part about that is if they are not reading proficiently by fourth grade, they are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. So there's a really narrow window that we have in which to work and try to get students up there. And also, they don't outgrow poor reading without targeted intervention. 74% of poor readers in 3rd grade still struggle in 9th grade, okay? So there has to be some targeted intervention. When you look at learning differences and disabilities in North Carolina, 43% of those children drop out of school. So we're not just talking about a few kids. We're talking about quite a lot, okay? Local scores, what do you think? Where are we? Low? Now these, if you look at the test scores before Read to Achieve, they kind of played with the standards just a little bit when they started doing the Read to Achieve. It was actually 6 out of 10 weren't reading on grade level. Now, you can see those statistics, but basically 4 out of 10 local kids don't have adequate reading skills coming out of 3rd grade. 4 out of 10, that's a lot, okay? And it's consistent, it's not one school system is doing a better job than the other. They are all the school systems are working as hard as they can, okay, and faced with budget cuts and just need additional support. So can they be successful in school if they're poor readers? These are some of our Augustine children. Can they be successful? Can they be successful in math and science? What do you think?
Not likely.
Not likely, okay? And I just want to just show you, I did some reading remediation work, and then they asked me to take on some math remediation too, and I noticed that there were some simple problems that the students that I had were missing. And I realized every word problem, even if the math part of it wasn't hard, they missed it because they couldn't read it, okay? So that you can see how much reading there is on a released math EOG. Talk about 5th grade science, look at that. If you can't, I mean, I know you can't see it, but you see how much text is on the page. Even my daughter who's in 8th grade taking algebra right now, This is the instructions for her calculator, okay? So we can't expect children to be proficient in STEM subjects if they can't read, because you can do lots and lots of project-based instruction, but children still have to be able to read. So how we help is we try to support those children who have learning differences through parent information sessions and through the Augustine program. There's more information about Patrick Beaver Learning Resource Center and the other programs in your program today. But what the Augustine Literacy Project's goal is to improve the reading, writing, and spelling abilities of low-income children who struggle with literacy skills. And what we do is we train and support volunteer tutors who provide one-on-one instruction. And really, for some children, one-on-one instruction is the only way they're ever going to learn to read, okay? And because of the budget cuts, with more and more teacher assistant positions being cut, there's not that time for one-on-one instruction in schools. So the curriculum is research-based, it's multisensory, it's structured, it's phonetic. If you are familiar with education in the primary grades, you might be familiar with the term Orton-Gillingham. It's based on the Orton-Gillingham method, and it uses Wilson materials. And for 90% of struggling readers, this method can increase their reading ability to an age-appropriate level. Now, it may take, if they're on a kindergarten level in 3rd grade, it may take us more than 1 year to get them there, okay, to where they need to be. But over time, 90% of struggling readers, Augustine program works for them. Here's somebody who I think looks familiar to this club. Who can become an Augustine tutor? Really, we have a great variety. Okay, anyone who's willing to commit to attending our training and providing 60 pro bono lessons to a low-income student. You do not have to have an education background. As you saw, here's another person who looks familiar to some of you too. As you saw, Thomas Griffiths is one of our tutors. We have people who work, we have occupational therapists, we have ultrasound technicians, and then we have a lot of people who aren't working right now. But Chris Ann Mitchell said this about why she tutors. She says, I tutor because the Augustine program makes a positive difference for struggling readers. Augustine tutors give their students a boost in ability and self-confidence. Their success and smiles are all I need to ensure I prepare and show up for our next session. This is the most immediately rewarding commitment I have ever made to our community. Okay, and then Thomas, when he was out, I asked him why he tutors. I tutor because teaching a child to read is one of the most important lifelong gifts that I, along with his or her school teachers and parents, can give him or her. The most rewarding part of tutoring is seeing a child who has difficulty reading begin to put letters together to form syllables and syllables together to form words. I think I must have a typo in there. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, when you talk about the value of the Augustine Literacy Project, this is not training that education majors necessarily receive in their schooling. Some of the testing has changed to force more of the phonetic approach to teaching reading, but to understand what our volunteers are given, understand that to get similarly trained tutors, Orton-Gillingham tutors, typically a family would pay $25 to $75 per hour, okay? And that's what we are giving these students who can't afford it, because for most families, $25 to $75 an hour is just out of reach, okay? Teachers often pay upwards of $1,000 for that training. So we talked about, that you saw two of our tutors talking about why they feel rewarded. If you are interested in becoming a tutor, it does require time and commitment, okay? Right now, we are experimenting with different training configurations. What we're trying to figure out is there a way we can shorten the training and still have the same quality, okay? But we are gonna train tutors again from August 3rd through August 14th, and then September 28th through October 2nd. So we've got a 2-week training and a 1-week training. We recently did a weekend training, and we hope to offer that again. When you do a weekend training, you have to follow back up with additional training sessions to make sure that they understand how to teach these kids to read. So you can get involved by becoming an Augustine tutor, or volunteer somebody else that you know that would make a good tutor. Recruit people that you believe would make good tutors. That is our greatest need. The hardest part of my job is when parents call the office and say, I'm struggling, I can't afford a private tutor, but my kids can't read and I don't know how to help them. And it's hard when I have to say, I'm sorry, right now all our volunteer tutors are taken. Also, as I said, we have kind of an identity crisis because people assume that we're the library. If you are a member of a church or another civic organization, you'd invite us to come and talk about Augustine Literacy Project to your organization. We would love to do that. Our greatest needs: people, press, and financial gifts. Okay, with any nonprofit, they want to look at how diversified your funding is. And so that is always a need, but the biggest need we have really are tutors, okay? And as I said, press, so that people understand that we are a different organization from the library. Y'all have questions? You still awake? Is it dark?
Well, where are you located?
Our office is located right behind the high school. There's a celery stalk, Hickory High School. There's a celery stalk apartments, and then I believe, I've not lived in Hickory all my life, but some said that maybe that was Roy Hill's office building. Okay. Cats Islanders, okay. So we are in that, we share that office, and we do the training in different places. The last training we did at St. Luke's Methodist. We did the summer training, I think, at Viewmont. I just started in September, but we have a small office there. Other questions?
Are the kids poor readers because their parents are poor readers, so there's no reinforcement or no reading materials in the home and those kinds of things early on to get them off to a good start? Or are they, I know the community I moved from about a year ago to come here had a problem where immigrants moving to that community, the parents were both many times illiterate in their native language, so the kids had no comprehension even of being able to read. So it was very tough to get them, they had to learn how to read Spanish or whatever their native language was first,
Right.
because they spoke it before they could then transition into English.
Well, what Augustine Literacy Project, we don't necessarily say you have to come from one background or another,
Yeah.
and it'll work with any child. And there's a variety of different backgrounds. Some of it is just lack of exposure.
Yeah.
And the kids that usually have that lack of exposure move more quickly through the program, and English language learners tend to move more quickly through the program because it's the children who have, true learning differences. They're dyslexic, and about 1 out of 10 people, they say, are dyslexic. Okay, but it's not dyslexic. Children are usually many times very gifted in another way, and so it's just getting this reading piece so that they can be successful in school and so that they can feel successful. Yes, Einstein was dyslexic. Edison was dyslexic.
How many tutors do you have, and how many do you need, and what's the age requirements?
Okay, right now we have 15 active tutors, okay, which is just a tiny drop in a bucket, but very significant to those 15 kids that are getting tutoring, okay. How many we need? Talking to Donna Hefner, who is the principal at St. Stephen's Elementary School, one of the highest poverty schools in the county, said, I'll take as many as you can give me. So, when you look at that, what we have decided to do as far as age is try to focus on 1st and 2nd grade, because really by the time they get to 3rd grade, that is when, they don't stop learning to read and they read to learn, okay? They are expected to know how to read. So we are trying to focus, right now we've got some tutors placed with fourth graders, but we're really trying to focus on, as we move forward, getting more tutors to go in that first and second grade. The method, however, one of our trainer, she uses it to tutor an adult who can't read. So the method works with anyone.
Do you use the visual arts as a teaching tool or a strategy for example?
Well, it's multisensory. So, what we make sure they do is they're not only saying the letter or writing the letter and sound, that they're actually using, a lot of muscle memory in different, so like they might be tracing the letters. There's a lot of tactile things, but not so much necessarily, there is some art in it, but not, in a structured way. That kind of depends on the individual tutor to bring it in.
Is there a plan to do online where you could teach the method online to tutors that would be able to learn on their own? So if I could do it on my own time and then become a tutor as opposed to a week or a weekend, or is there a way to do that?
Well, I think that's a good idea, because a lot of people, that chunk of time is a big commitment. So, that's something that we definitely can explore. One thing that we are doing next year is, I was a North Carolina Teaching Fellow, which was a scholarship program for teachers. That has been cut by the state, but several private colleges have reinstituted their own teaching scholarships. Lenoir-Rhyne is one. And so starting in the fall, we are actually going to teach their teaching scholars. And so we're going to meet with them more on a daily basis, or maybe 3 times a week. And so the training's going to be more spread out, and it might be that we can record those
I
sessions.
think there ought to be a way to do that for those of us that have limited time. If I taught myself, and then you check in or something, then there'd be a way to get to work with some of the, with some of the students.
Right. That's definitely a good idea.
This day and age.
Are there opportunities, being involved with the PTA, are there opportunities that, as a PTA, you can pay for maybe, you kind of answered maybe first and second grade teachers, the opportunity to do some type of workshop where we could finance it and it might help them in the classroom?
Yes, and that is one of the things that Patrick Beaver Learning Resource Center is exploring. Next year, we hope, not this summer, but summer of 2016, we hope to bring in a Orton Gillingham trainer and train several teachers, and we would absolutely love to have support.
How much would something like that cost if you were, is it per teacher? Would it be $1,000 per teacher?
When it depends, but yes, it can run as much as that, yes. Other questions?
I just wanted to make a comment that you are absolutely right about reading failures becoming prison beds later. It's something a lot of people don't realize, is that the number of children who fail their reading test at the end of 3rd grade, that number is used to project the number of prison beds that will be needed in the state of North Carolina 20 years later. That's a really sad thing, to think that if you don't catch them by the end of the 3rd grade, and the ones that go on from there with poor reading skills, they do tend to wander off into the dark areas of life because they can't read and they can't succeed in school, and they look for other ways to make it in life.
Where do tutors meet with the students?
The tutors, we try to work within the school days, because when you are talking about low-income children, transportation can be an issue. But right now we have a family that said that we'll willingly drive to the library, and we have one of our tutors who works all day. She meets them after hours in the library, so it's flexible. We have to be very careful that we're not pulling a student who's already struggling out of class. But some meet after the school day at school, some meet during the school day. Some schools have a built-in remediation time that we can pull those students.
Do you see any impact from the Imagination Library program, L.A. Parton's program, does it help with this as far as before you even get to school?
I can't imagine that I haven't seen any statistics about that. I mean, it has to help. Any exposure to literacy at an earlier age, as long as the parents are actually reading the books that they receive to the children, that's such a huge I don't have the quote in that PowerPoint, but the number of words that a child that grows up in a middle class environment is exposed to versus those that grow up in an impoverished environment, it's just huge. So anytime you can help bridge that gap, I think it has to help. But as far as, locally, have we seen the impact of that yet? No. I mean, I haven't. But that only started, I think, 2 years ago. So some of those kids are just now entering school.
Of those 4 out of 10 kids that are struggling with reading comprehension, what's the split of, you mentioned ESL kids or people who are just going to need a little extra help with the language, and what's the split of kids who just do have those true learning differences and are always going to take more care? Do you have that? If I had a grant proposal that I wrote last week, I would have it, but I don't have that number off the top of my head. But there's a huge impact that being an English language learner makes. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think that what I remember putting in the grant is those children with true learning differences. It's not a language issue. They make up about 75% or more are considered well below grade level. So it's a big percentage. It's not the system we have currently, kindergarten, first grade. It's not that they don't have what they need to get it done. It's that those kids are always going to take more. Well, I think we're seeing more and more children come with low levels of literacy before they reach school, and so it just takes time to make that up. And I think we're way past time.
Okay, one more question. Okay. Thank you for being here, and we'd like to give you this medallion, Paul Harris medallion, and on the back it has the 4-way test that we try to live by, and we thank you for coming. And you can see, obviously, why it's an important thing for this club. There are a lot of things going on. Imagination Library that we support, and you can see why we do support that. There's just a lot of needs. Without even Q, Tony is here with us.
Okay, we took in $99 today. We have 14 cards, 1 joker, and we have $3,014.
$3,014. 920658. 920658.
Sure, it's on 2.
You have to be present.
Somebody got it.
Draw another one, quick.
One more time. 920658. All right. Draw again. Close counts in horseshoes and heavy artillery.
605.
920605. He probably had the first one too. Steve, thanks for making up. Alexis, Marion, and Taylor, thanks for coming. Please come back. Taylor, please come back so Frank will behave. Okay. You're good. Your chances are pretty good there, eh? Oh, it's a red card. 8 of diamonds. Love failure. Okay, remember the committee meeting, Susan's committee meeting right here. Any further announcements? Let's stand adjourned with the four-way test. Are the things we think, say, and do, is it true?
They are all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?